want to go right now to Sean Spicer, former White House press secretary, now host of the Sean Spicer Show on the First TV, which is where we're simulcasting this show right now, thefirsttv.com, 347 DirecTV, everywhere you stream everything. Sean, how you doing, brother?
Good morning, Mike. Hanging in there. Concerned
busy
after
day
last
yesterday
night, but
for
doing
us.
all right.
Yeah, well, I'm actually more fascinated about your time in the White House with Trump and his State of the Union, but let's give last night its due. What were your takeaways, sir?
One, I think the president clearly has some anger issues. I think he was upset. He's obsessed with his predecessor. I can't believe how many times I heard that term. He clearly thinks that Snickers bars have to be addressed, which I'm glad that a president of the United States is finally tackling this important issue. And I think it was detached from reality in terms of the policies that we lived under President Trump and the policies that we do under President Biden. I literally felt like we were living in an alternative universe last night.
Yeah, that's part of the spin, though, right? That's part of the point. Here's the line. Remember the fear, remember job losses, remember the spike in crime and the murder rate. I came to office determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in our nation's history. The economy was on the brink. Now our economy is the envy of the world. That's just like some basic political spin, right? What are you doing?
But it's not basic political spin. I mean, political spin is trying to take credit. You know, if the economy's growing and you're saying, you know, we've done the following. I mean, it defies reality. I mean, the governor of New York just sent 1,000 National Guard troops and state police to the subway system in New York because it's so dangerous. People are getting hurt. So he's talking about how crime is coming down. Washington, D.C., where, you know, I don't live in the city, but I live near the city, and it's it's probably the most dangerous I've seen in 30 years. So what he's saying doesn't make sense. I mean, in terms of the economy, you think about where interest rates, where inflation was. I mean, he started talking about how inflation had gone to 9%. Yes, under him. And then he's proud that he brought it back down. That's like literally taking an A, going to an F, and saying, I'm only getting a D now, Mom and Dad. It's just that's the spin. Is he's trying to pretend that it's not his record that this is happening on. Same thing with the border. The idea that none of this happened. He's the guy that undid proudly, by the way, 94 executive orders and actions that President Trump had done to secure the border. But once everything went south, has now tried to say last night that this was somehow not his fault.
We're going to talk with Tom Emmer coming up next. So I want to spend more time with him on analysis of last night. But you have deeper insight than anyone on Trump's time in the White House and specifically Trump's State of the Union. So jog our memory, like what would you say the biggest differences were style-wise, content-wise, goal, intent-wise between what we saw last night and Trump's State of the Union?
Well, I think Trump was much more aspirational. He was trying to get us to talk about where we wanted to go and how we needed to get there, right? So, and frankly, I think that's the goal of a State of the Union. It's what is the state of the country and where do you want to get us to? It's aspirational, it's visionary. And last night we heard a lot of grievance about what my predecessor did, where we were, and how. And it was almost like I'm trying to justify my existence. So, you know, he kicks off by talking about an attack on democracy, and I'm thinking to myself, what attack? We're all still voting. Your side's the one that's canceling a primary in Florida, trying to kick third parties off the ballot, trying to deny your opponent to get on the ballot. So I think when President Trump did it, our goal, at least for me when I was there at the first one, crafting that joint address, was to really lay out a vision of what do we want people to buy into in terms of where we're going? What's the value and the goals that we want people to understand that you may not always understand the tactics, right? Those are the specific bills or the legislative and proposals or executive actions. But we have a overall goal of where we want to get the country. And so we want people to buy into that. And I thought that President Trump, you know, look, let me just go back to one thing. And I think I said it to you last night. A speech is a speech. It's full of talking points. And last night literally was one Democratic talking point after another. I don't tend to give speeches too much merit because they are just that. They are an individual standing in front of a rostrum reading off a teleprompter. what amazed me last night was how poor the president came off. President Trump, no matter, I think I told you this, but when we came back after the first joint address, I walked back into the White House and I'm holding my phone and I just started reading different tweets and analysis put out by Democrats. It said President Trump delivered a great speech tonight. The White House has to be proud of this. Da, 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 da. The idea, and that was great, and it's a sugar high. It's here's a great speech, you delivered it, now go follow it up. Now get the people to buy into what you said. Last night, all that President Biden did was just read a litany of grievances and Democratic talking points. So that there's a big contrast there. I don't have a lot of faith in this, and so I look and go, okay, what are you going to do tomorrow, the day after, the next week, to fulfill what you said today? And if I were the White House team, what are you actually fulfilling that he said last night? You're going to go out and there was no. I kept thinking to myself as I'm listening, what do you do to follow up? Because you've just listed your grievances, nothing else.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So in contrast, this is Trump's the end of his speech. He says, as the world bears witness tonight, America is the land of heroes. And I want to ask you, who wrote this? This is a place where greatness is born, where destinies are forged, where legends come to life. This is the home of Thomas Edison and Teddy Roosevelt, great generals, Washington, Pershing, Patton, MacArthur. This is the home of Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Amelia Earhart, Harriet Tubman, the Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, so many more. This is the country where children learn names like Wyatt Earp, Davy Crockett, Annie Oakley. This is the place where the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, where Texas patriots made their last stand at the Alamo. The American nation was carved on the vast frontier by the toughest, strongest, fiercest, most determined men and women ever to walk on the face of the earth. Our ancestors braved the unknown, tamed the wilderness, settled the Wild West, lifted millions from poverty, disease, hunger, vanquished tyranny and fascism, ushered the world to new heights of science and medicine, laid down the railroads, dug up the canals, raised up the skyscrapers. And ladies and gentlemen, our ancestors built the most exceptional republic ever to exist in all of human history, and we are making it greater than ever before. I didn't hear any of that last night.
But
like nothing
you
like
see
that.
The difference there? That you're reading it. And even while you're reading it, I'm getting excited. I'm thinking to myself, yes, I'm in. Let's do it. Let's go. And it's that sort of like you feel like you're the coach before the big game and you're getting the team fired up. Yeah. But when you can read it and you're not even the person that's supposed to deliver it and other people get excited, then you know it's a good speech and it's aspirational and visionary. There was nothing about that last night. There was nothing where you went, yes, let me put aside my partisan difference and just cheer for you for a second.
Who wrote that part I just read?
I don't know. I mean, there were several hands at play at all times. Ross Worthington, Vince Haley were two of the big speechwriters. Stephen Miller always had a hand. But we would sit around in the map room, and now there was always a hand, just to be clear. And then the president would come in and throw a name in or throw a line in and say, add something about this. And the State of the Union addresses, in my experience, were always the most collective team efforts, where the president himself, as part of that team and the leader of the team, was more involved in that speech than any other work that I had ever been part of. And he literally was crafting lines. I mean, I have photos of markups of the speech where it's his hand, he's literally crossing stuff out, adding whole lines in. And then that doesn't even include the actual in-person run-throughs where he's saying, no, take that out, add this in. These are when he then would go back, reread himself in solitary and add new things in. But the State of the Union speeches, and I don't know, I don't get the sense in Biden that he's that involved in much, but at least under Trump, they were the most they involved the most number of people that really kind of were different. The White House counsel's office, the Leg Affairs, the different policy folks, key communication staffers, confidants, that were all in the room and had known the president or were part of his putting together or implementing his legislative agenda, so that they could each say, okay, we're missing this, so we need to include that. Because you really want it to be comprehensive, capture his voice, et cetera.
Yeah, I think people would be surprised to find out that Trump had any hand, as much of a hand as he did.
I mean, it's like I said, for me, I found it the greatest experience of my life, watching it take place, because normally he would when I'd fly with him, they'd hand him the speech. He would make edits. There's no, but they had captured his voice, and there was just too many speeches for him to really get in. But this one was days of, revising the speech. He would go back to the residence. He would relook at it. We'd come back down. We'd gather again. He'd go through it literally, in front of a lectern with a teleprompter, read it, edit it, come back. It was a very iterative process.